What's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. I'm super excited for this video today because it is so long overdue. We haven't done one of these videos for a couple of years, and this is going to be an updated cost of living in Denver 2024. And guys, I've got some good news for you. A lot of these prices have actually gone down since our last video that we did on this, and a lot of you guys have been asking for an updated one. So Will is out on an inspection right now with one of our buyers, so I thought this is a perfect opportunity for me to come to the computer, get the nitty-gritty information, get all the details for you. And we're going to cover everything from average rental, house price, food, transportation, medical, utilities, all the things that you're going to need to know before you move out here so that you can make a good educated decision on how Denver is going to stack up against your current city. With that being said, guys, let's get right into it. So if you guys have been following our channel for any amount of time, you've probably heard us mention that on average, up until this point, Denver has been about 30% higher than the national average, yet 30% lower than a lot of the more popular areas in California, where a lot of our other clients come from. Even some other places like New York, or even down in, some places like Tampa, Florida, where we end up getting a lot of people from. So to recap, 30% higher than national average, 30% lower than Southern California. Well, I've got great news for you because that has changed. I'm going to jump over to the computer here, show you guys some of the sites that we like to use for calculating cost of living. And really what I want to be able to do with you guys on this video is give you a good overview as far as what you can expect here in Denver, but then also dive into some comparisons, right? So we're going to be looking at places like San Diego, Austin, Texas, and Seattle, which are three of some of the top places that our clients come from, so that you can see how Denver stacks up amongst those places. And then you can also check out the sites for yourself so that you can see exactly for your hometown how it's going to compare and what you need to start prepping for once you come to Colorado. All right, now the first site we're going to check out is Payscale.com. I like using this site because this is going to give us a good overall view of how the Denver area compares to national averages. So if we take a look here right on top, this is going to give us a very brief summary, and then we're going to dive into some details for you. So it's saying that now Colorado is 11% higher than the national average, which again, 2 years ago, guys, this was 30, or I think to be specific, 26 to 28%. This has changed drastically. All right. Now, what hasn't changed that much is our housing. You guys can see here that housing is still about 36% higher than the national average. Now, this is no surprise, right? If you guys are looking at home prices online of Denver, which I'm sure you've done up at this point, you're going to see that we don't have the cheapest homes here. I would say a good safe bet for the Denver area as a whole, not specific to one city. If you're looking to get into, a decent home, it's going to be roughly about $500,000. That really is where you start to see some inventory starting to pop up. Anything lower than that, you're really going to have to go towards the outskirts or out into the country, which might feel a little bit like Kansas to you. But right around 500,000 is really where you start to set tipping point of decent homes in the Denver metro area. And you may not have a lot of inventory. Once you start getting up to about 550 or maybe even 600, that's really where you start to get some really good options. So not the cheapest home prices out here, but when you compare it to everything else, when we get into utilities and groceries, transportation, things like that, you're going to find that Colorado is actually very, very competitive. So as much amazing things as Colorado has to offer, the most you'll be paying for is housing. Everything else is honestly a pretty dang good deal considering all the cool things you get when you move out to an area such as Denver. All right, now scrolling down here, let's go ahead and take a look at some of these categories that we're going to have. Now, keep in mind this bold line down here in the middle, this is going to give us national average. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here just a little bit for you. This line here is national average. So overall, we're sitting 11% higher than that, taking in all factors. Now, housing, we're at 36% higher. Utilities are actually 13% less than the national average. Groceries, surprisingly, 6% less than the national average. And our transportation fees are right at the national average. All right, interrupting here real quick, guys, to remind you that we are licensed real estate brokers. And as much as we like making these videos, we'd love more to help you with your real estate needs. So that number that's popping up right here, give us a phone call, text message, or email. We would love to hear from you, love to help you out. Let's jump on a Zoom call, talk about your real estate needs, guys, and get you set up with a good strategy and game plan to get you out to Colorado. That being said, let's get right to it. Now, speaking of transportation, one thing that might surprise you a little bit when you come out here that you got to be ready for is how much it costs to register a new vehicle out here. And it's important to know because if you buy a new car, man, it can cost you a pretty penny those first few years of ownership. So what it's going to look like the first year you own a car, it's going to be 2.1% of the taxable value of the vehicle. What's the taxable value? About 85% of MSRP. That's a lot of money. That means if you have a $50,000 vehicle, when you go to register that car, it's going to cost you almost $900 just for the 1 year of registration. Then going into the second year, you're going to get a little bit of a break and you're going to be down to 1.5% of taxable value. But man, it still is going to cost a lot of money every year. So when we're looking at this graph that shows Colorado is right on par with the national average as far as transportation goes, my guess is that because a lot of other cities are going to require a lot of public transportation, maybe some other fees, maybe also high taxes, where in Colorado, you're not going to be paying for public transportation. You are going to have your own vehicle. So maybe you're saving some money there, but you are going to go ahead and spend it on the vehicle itself. Another place you're going to save some money by coming over here is the gas. Surprisingly, Colorado, in my opinion, has always had very reasonable gas. I filled up my truck the other day for like $2.80, which is absolutely crazy. When we go out to Vegas or California or Texas on trips, I know that it can easily be almost double that, which blows my mind anytime we travel. It makes me just realize, hey, every time we're in Colorado that, hey, our gas is pretty affordable here for whatever reason. So that definitely helps offset it a little bit, but definitely something I want you guys to be aware of before you come out here. All right, now let's check out some other factors here. Our median home price in Colorado right now is $612,000, okay? Just like I was saying, about that 500 price point, you're gonna start to get some decent homes. 550, it starts ticking up a little bit. So our median is right at about 612 here. Now, how does that compare to rent? Right about 1,800, and I'd venture to say probably closer to 1,900, 1,950 from what I've seen. And this is for your average 1 to 2 bedroom, again, in the entire Denver metro area. Energy, we're looking at about $153 per month. This is going to factor in typically gas and electrical, okay? In most places out here, you will have natural gas and electricity. Our water heaters run off natural gas out here. Gas stoves, gas fireplaces are all very common out here. And then electrical is going to be pretty much just your home, right? Now, phone bills, we're looking at $165 a month. That seems about accurate. I want to say for our 2 lines with Verizon, it's usually about $180 per month. And they have gas here at about $340. Maybe that's an average or so, but lately it's been amazing right around that $280 mark, which has been really, really good. So, looking at your hometown, I'm curious how these numbers stack up. These really do kind of play into everything that we just said. Again, home prices, you're going to be paying a bit with rent or purchase, but then all of these all seem pretty reasonable to me. So let us know in the comments if you guys have anything different than this or vastly different, it's higher or lower. I'm always curious how much you guys are paying in other states. Now, let's go ahead and scroll down here a little bit. We're going to go ahead and check out groceries. I know these are, constantly changing. My wife does all the grocery shopping, so I'm not even too sure how much an actual gallon of milk costs, but this seems accurate to me, taking into consideration that they said Colorado was lower than the national average. These all look pretty decent to me, if I had to say so. Now let's come down here and take a look at healthcare. Healthcare is always an interesting one here to see how this varies, but average doctor visit, $123, dentist, $106, all these right around $100, minus the prescription drug at $456. Now, I don't even think that's just a Colorado thing. That's more of a national thing. That's a whole other topic right there, but definitely do not agree with that. So this gives you guys an overview of where Denver sits compared to the national average. Now let's jump into a couple different comparisons of cities to see how some places that we get high volume of clients from stack up directly to Denver. So for that, we're going to jump over to this site here called Rent Cafe. This is a place where it's much more than just rentals. You can go and you can punch in where you live. Like here, I have Austin, Texas. You want to move to Denver, and then you're going to put in a salary. I just did a sample salary of $100,000 just as a decent average, right? So this is going to tell us here that in order to maintain your Austin, Texas standard of living, your Denver, Colorado salary would need to be $109,000, almost $110,000. So Denver is roughly 10% higher than Austin, Texas. Okay, so let's take a look and see exactly what is costing more. So here, housing, not that big of a difference. We're 13% higher than Austin. That's because Austin's homes are also at a premium, right? Austin has blown up over the past few years, especially since COVID. Utilities, that's where you're going to save some money. If you're looking at your energy bill, you're 10% lower here in Denver. You're 5% lower on a phone bill for a total of 8% lower Denver versus Austin. Food, you're going to pay about 7% more here in Denver. And honestly, it's costing you more than that, guys, because I bet Austin has better food. One of the things we've talked about quite a bit is how Denver's food scene is vastly getting better and growing, especially over the past 3 to 5 years. It's improved a ton, but I hear Austin has some amazing food. But you're going to be paying a little bit more for it out here in Colorado. Now, healthcare, we're saving about 3% here versus Austin. Transportation, let's see, the biggest difference here is, so you're actually paying a little bit more for gas here than in Austin, but apparently tires are cheaper. Go figure, right? Goods and services, let's see what that includes. So this is just your everyday living expenses, right? Haircut, beauty salon, dry cleaning, clothing, newspaper, movie tickets, yoga. You're paying more here, especially for women's slacks. Interesting factor there in Colorado. Everything else, haircut, beauty salon, you're saving some money here in the Denver area. So overall, if we're looking at Denver versus Austin, Denver's going to cost you roughly 10% more. Now, next up, we're going to compare San Diego versus Denver. We've got a lot of clients that move here from California every single month. I figured San Diego would be a good kind of baseline average for California as a whole. So let's jump over there, take a look to see just how we stack up against San Diego. Now, I did factor in again $100,000 salary. Now, I know that might not go very far in San Diego, but wanted to keep it the same across the board. So looking at it here, in order to maintain your San Diego standard of living, your Denver salary would need to be $77,000. All right. So that's roughly 23% lower cost of living that we're going to have in San Diego. The majority of that is coming from housing as expected. So like I said before, right, where California is about 30% higher than Colorado, we're seeing that play out right here, specifically with housing, with their average monthly rent of $3,000. Man, that hurts. Now let's scroll down, take a look at some other ones. We're almost lower all across the board, right? So we've got utilities 22% lower, food 14% lower, healthcare 5%, transportation 22% lower, goods and services 3%, and then income, let's see, 13% lower. So this is taken into comparison median household income in San Diego, $89,000 versus $78,000 here in Denver. All right, San Diego versus Denver, you are clearly saving a lot more money by coming out here. So definitely something to keep in mind. All right, now next up, we are going to go to our third most popular area, which is going to be Seattle versus Denver. All right, now jumping over here, we're going to see that, man, it's pretty much right in line with San Diego, crazy enough. Again, using a baseline example of $100,000, we're looking at a 25% savings moving here versus staying in Seattle. Now, our housing isn't quite as much as San Diego, right? We're looking at 13% lower here in Colorado. Coming down here, we're going to save on utilities, food, healthcare, transportation, goods and services. Surprisingly, food and healthcare is a lot. Utilities still 17%. That's a massive savings. Coming down here to income, you are going to be making for the same position roughly 26% less here versus Seattle. So don't quite pay as much, but we're saving a lot of other money in these other areas. So all in all, man, if you're in Seattle, you might as well be in SoCal. And if you're in SoCal, you might as well be here in Denver. Now, this wouldn't be a true cost of living video if we didn't dive into taxes just a little bit. Now, I am no tax expert, but I will give you the surface level, but not go too deep into it, guys, because I don't want to misspeak. But I think one important thing to know is that we do have an income tax here. But the good thing is that it is a flat income tax. So regardless of what tax bracket you're in, regardless of how much income you make, you're just going to be looking at a flat income tax of 4.4%. Now, diving into sales tax a little bit, we are going to have a state tax. So not city, but just state overall of a baseline sales tax of 2.9%. And then on top of that, depending on what city you're purchasing any goods in, you're going to have a max of 8.3%. Now, that is quite a bit, right? That sounds like a lot, especially on top of the state sales tax. But if you're looking at a combined average of state and local, you're looking at about 7.78% sales tax. So at the end of the day, not terrible. And outside of that, guys, there really aren't any major things that Colorado is doing or that's just weird or obnoxious or, not favorable towards business owners or even employees employees. Overall, I feel like Colorado is a very, very reasonable state. And when we look at the state now, again, 2 years ago, we were 30% higher than the national average, or just about 30%. Now we're 10 to 11% higher than the national average, yet we're still 23 to 28% lower than New York, California, and a lot of those other places that you guys might be coming from. So overall, guys, there's a massive upside to Colorado, the tax situation, the income, the cost of living, and all the opportunity that comes along with just getting to the state. So I know this video isn't quite as exciting as our other ones, guys, especially with Will out on inspection. He always brings so much good energy to the videos, but hopefully this was really good and informative for you. Again, this was long overdue. We hadn't done one of these in a couple of years. So if you guys have any other questions, leave a comment below. And just a reminder, guys, we are licensed real estate brokers. So there's a number that's popping up on the screen. And as much as we like making these videos, we'd love more to help you with the real estate needs. So throw us a phone call, text message, or email. We'd love to hear from you, help you out. And guys, you have a wonderful week, great weekend, and we will see you next time.